Francesca Page rejoins me on set, and we are joined now to go in depth on the threat of Ebola by Tevi Troy, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute and former Deputy Director or Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services during the presidency of George W. Bush. Tevi, thanks very much for Skyping in from Washington. Let's take a step back. It's good to have you. Let's get some perspective here. A lot of reporting almost sounds like doomsday and the potential spread of Ebola. Slate, in fact, has a new piece where they write in part, and we're going to quote from this, now that Ebola appears to have the potential to affect Americans, we really care. Not about Ebola or the people it's affecting per se, but mostly about ourselves and whether we're going to die of Ebola. The piece goes on to talk about spreading this disease and how, quote, it's unlikely that it's spread through air travel. I don't know what's going to happen with the airborne notion of this, but Tevi, from your perspective, is this media madness? Is it educating the public, or is this thing just getting hyped and inciting panic?
Well, you know, Slate is well known and has for a long time had this kind of snarky, witty approach to things. I think that Ebola is a concern. It has been a concern to public health officials for a while. Fortunately, is not an airborne illness. So if you're sitting next to someone on a plane, don't fear that you're going to get their Ebola if God forbid they have it. That said, it is a dangerous and deadly disease, and the consequences of getting it are not pretty. So what we want to do is make sure we limit its ability to get into the country, while at the same time, as Dr. Frieden said, have American public health workers and other public health workers from, let's say, the World Health Organization, try to stop the spread of it outside this country, but also maintain good infection controls in this country so that it doesn't spread here as well.
Mr. Troy, as the psychological element of this comes into play, my question for you is, has our fear outstripped our compassion with this? I mean, we've heard calls from various household names saying that these people should not have been allowed back into the United States and so forth. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that these people who bravely go out and fight diseases around the world should be allowed to get the best treatment possible, which is in this country. I understand the calls of those who you said their hysteria outstrips their compassion, because the fear is that CDC has messed up with a couple of diseases. There were some anthrax samples, and so. If CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, does not maintain sufficient infection controls, there would be a chance that this would get out of hand. However, the problems of CDC recently did not take place with human patients, and I think there's a lot of attention and care being paid to these particular patients, and so I'm pretty confident that it's not going to spread from these patients. Tevi, in New York.
About a minute and a half remains. We're not trying to incite panic, but we do want to talk about the threat for this disease to become weaponized. Is this a real threat in your mind?
Well, now that is a whole other story. The weaponization of diseases is quite frightening. If somebody could weaponize Ebola and make it so that it was, let's say, airborne, that would be really devastating. However, there is no evidence that that has happened at this point. And furthermore, it is very difficult to do that. You need some very smart scientists with a lot of resources behind them. So this whole notion about weaponization of pathogens that you read about in spy novels is really not that easy to do and not that common. And the U.S. government does carefully watch this. They monitor it, and we have an SNS, a strategic national stockpile, to have countermeasures available in case these things happen. So I really would not urge people to panic, or I'd urge people not to panic over this notion of weaponization of Ebola. That is not an apparent threat right now.
Tevi Troy, we thank you very much for your insights and input, Skyping in from Washington, D.C. This is going to remain in the news, and we know we'll have you back real soon to talk about this and other topics. Thanks so much.
Happy to do it.
Well, we move from this to something completely different. Since you are a child of the information age, I know you do selfies, right? Yeah, you do selfies. Coming up right now, Alan Dershowitz with a word about selfies. It's you and the law.
Selfies are becoming very popular with everyone. Hey, I'm taking one myself right now. Even the President of the United States takes his own selfies. A selfie, of course, is when you use your own smartphone to photograph yourself alone or with other persons. Now, here's the legal question. After taking the selfie that includes other people, perhaps even strangers or famous people, can you circulate the image on the internet and elsewhere? Well, there's no hard and fast rule, but if the other person is aware that you took the photograph, then that person is generally presumed to have consented to its non-commercial circulation. A smile is usually a good sign of consent. Still, you can't use it for commercial purposes, such as selling a product or promoting a business. For example, when David Big Papi Ortiz, the Red Sox designated hitter, discovered this, he took a selfie with the president, President Obama, during a visit by the world champions to the White House. But when Big Papi tried to capitalize on the selfie by using his opportunity to plug a corporate sponsor, Samsung, the White House was not amused, and he was told to stop. There are also other limits. If it's a selfie involving someone's private sexual life, the other person has the right to assume that it was made purely for personal amusement and not for public disclosure. Being photographed in a compromising position does not create the same presumption of consent as does smiling in a photo. So remember, all selfies are not the same, and act accordingly. I'm Alan Dershowitz for Newsmax TV.